Kratos, the undisputed hero or anti-hero of the God of War series. But how well do we know Kratos? Are there facts out there that we just don't know about Kratos as fans? Well, to help bridge that gap, here are 27 remarkable facts about Kratos in God of War. And if you know these facts, hit the like button for being one hell of a God of War fan. And if you did learn something new about Kratos in this video, hit the like button because you're just fucking awesome. Kratos is actually a god in Greek mythology, and he actually lines up pretty well with the God of War universe, being the personification of strength and power. Kratos, which I have actually seen the spelling like Kratos, is the son of the two titans Pallas and Styx. In Greek mythology, Kratos and Bay were commanded by Hephaestus to imprison Prometheus. Weirdly enough, it was Kratos who actually released Prometheus in God of War 2 from his imprisonment in Tartarus, but kinda died. In God of War Ghosts of Sparta, there is actually character art for a female Kratos. Dana Jan presented the idea to the team at Sony Santa Monica, saying that the fans wanted a Goddess of War costume for the game, but at the end of the day, the costume was cut for the final production. This may be due to the possible nudity of the character, or potentially that the voice acting was not up to snuff, but no one knows for sure. Possibly Sony Santa Monica does, but nothing's been confirmed so far. Kratos' height has differed between the various sources and materials for the God of War series. Early in the scripts, it is said that Kratos stands at 6 foot 6 inches tall. According to a God of War 3 special feature, it says that Kratos stands 8 feet tall, which is said to be his height throughout the entire Greek saga. The God of War comics states that he is 7 foot 6 inches tall. In 2021, a game developer stated that Kratos is 6 foot 4 inches tall, and in God of War 2018, Kratos is stated to be 6 foot 6 inches tall. So who friggin' knows at this point? Very early depictions of Kratos actually have him with long hair and carrying a baby. Can you imagine Kratos carrying a baby throughout the God of War series? I mean, the long hair might have very well worked out, being that in ancient Sparta this was a very common look for the era. But him being bald and tattooed was the final decision, to make a more recognizable and monumental character. And the long hair for the time was very hard to animate. Kratos' tattoos were originally going to be blue. According to David Jaffe, the red tattoos looked too much like Rome, and that red looked almost too violent. But this was way before the Kratos that we know today, and his direction possibly was going in a different direction. But at the last minute, his tattoos were changed from the blue to the red that we know today, because the blue tattoos look way too similar to characters in Diablo 2, particularly the barbarian character. Speaking of Kratos' tattoos, his tattoos were actually going to be in the form of an Omega symbol. But this was obviously changed later in development, and now we have the tattoos that we know today. Kratos is one of the playable characters in the franchise game PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, which is very comparable to the Smash Bros. Series. While this is really cool by itself, two other characters from the God of War series made appearances in this game, which was Zeus, who was a DLC character, and also Hades, but unfortunately he was just in the background and was not playable. Kratos has also made an appearance in the PlayStation game Shovel Knight, but here is one mind-blowing fact about this. The developers of Shovel Knight and God of War director at the time, Cory Barlog, have confirmed that Shovel Knight and the God of War series are in the same universe. Kratos has carried a severed head with him in every main entry in the God of War series, going back to the first God of War released in 2005. Those being Medusa's head in the original God of War, the head of Euryale in God of War 2, the head of Helios in God of War 3, and the head of Mimir in God of War 2018. In the Simpsons game, released in 2008, a Simpsons cartoon version of Kratos can be seen in the background on a billboard. The words God of War are written next to the picture, with Kratos eating a bowl of chowder. Developer Stig Asmusman has said that David Jaffe actually wanted Kratos to take on the Norse and Egyptian pantheon right after we killed Zeus and the rest of the Greek pantheon, but this really never came to be. but a version of this concept actually does exist today, with a spin-off game called Bit of War, which is an 8-bit video game that followed David Jaffe's idea for the end of God of War 3. According to Cory Barlog, in a fight between Kratos from the Norse realm in God of War 2018 versus himself in the Greek sagas, the older Kratos would win, without a question. This is obviously not a hard fact, but from someone like Cory Barlog, who maps out the story of God of War and Kratos, we can consider this a fact. In the Greek God of War games, Kratos kills at least one god in every entry, with the complete outlier being God of War 3, which he kills 7. But for a total of gods killed in the Greek pantheon, Kratos has killed 14. In God of War 2, when Kratos travels back in time to see his original battle with Ares with the help of Atropos, the tattoos on Kratos who are fighting Ares at the time almost seems extremely faded, almost invisible, until the end scene where he grabs the blade of the gods. But the very strange thing about this is that his tattoos are actually orange instead of red. So there is one part of the God of War series, and I mean only one part, where an adult Kratos no longer has his tattoos or the ash of his family on his skin. This is during Chains of Olympus, where Kratos found his way into Elysium, the better part of the Greek underworld, and was reunited with his daughter Calliope. During each of the main installments of God of War, with the exception being God of War 2018, Kratos is killed through impalement through his abdomen. The first time was from Ares, who threw a stone pillar and hit him in God of War 1. The second being Zeus in God of War 2, who stabbed him through his abdomen with the blade of Olympus. And the final was in God of War 3, when he tried to commit suicide, also again with the blade of Olympus. And talking about what Kratos has done in every main series game except for God of War 2018, he's burnt someone alive. The first being the sacrificed soldier in Pandor's temple in God of War 1, which in other games they switch him to an undead legion member, but that's neither here nor there. Prometheus in God of War 2, where he unchained him and he fell into the fires of Olympus. And Pirithous in God of War 3, where he uses a fire breath of a Cerberus. Kratos has killed both of his parents during the God of War series. He killed Zeus at the very end of God of War 3 with his bare hands, and he reluctantly killed his mother Callisto in God of War Ghost of Sparta, when she transformed into a hideous monster right before she was going to tell him who his father was. Which is Zeus, by the way. Okay, Kratos isn't all bad, or at least he tries not to be sometimes. Throughout the God of War series, when Kratos comes up against his brothers or maybe even his cousins, his first response was not to fight them. But unfortunately, at least for them, Kratos ends up killing them either way because they either challenge him or they straight up insult him. It has never been clearly said how long Kratos has reigned as God of War in Greece, but we can piece this together with this fact. Daedalus spent 4,603 days working on the labyrinth, which translates to about 12.61 years. And since Zeus told Daedalus to build a labyrinth right after Kratos killed Ares, which means Kratos reigned as the Greek God of War for 12.61 years between God of War 1 and God of War 3. Kratos has a character model that was going to be used in God of War Ascension, but it was changed very quickly, and I am seriously glad for that. It shows Kratos looking nothing like himself. Looking almost drained, older, his torso pretty much looks non-existent, and some of his limbs have complete pieces missing. I'm glad they changed that one. While in the realm of Helheim, Kratos sees an old vision of him battling Zeus at the end of God of War 3. But something is slightly different about this. Kratos' voice actor Christopher Judge actually redid the voice for this scene, because he took over the voice of Kratos in God of War 2018. Instead of hearing Terrence Carson, who was the original voice of Kratos back in God of War 3, and pretty much all the other titles too. During the God of War series, Kratos has had to get some type of item from inside of a creature a total of 5 times. And these creatures are Daimo in God of War Ascension for the Oath Stone of Orcos, the Hydra in God of War 1 for the Boat Captain's Key, the Cerberus Mole for the Golden Fleece in God of War 2, Kronos for the Omphalos Stone in God of War 3, and the World Serpent Jormungandr in God of War 2018 for Mimir's second eye. In God of War 2018, Kratos sometimes says the word indeed. So why is this so important? Well, this is reference to Christopher Judge's role as Teal'c in Stargate SG-1, as one of Teal'c's most famous lines. 7-Eleven released a Slurpee called Kratos Fury to help promote God of War 3, which was a blend of various blackberries and Frosty Limes flavors. I've only actually been to 7-Eleven probably once in my entire life, but if this was a choice for a flavor, I probably would have got it. At the end of God of War 1, when Kratos was brought to Olympus to be the new God of War, two statues can be seen in the throne room, one being that of Ares and the other Pandora's guardian. If the player destroys both of these statues, they are given a secret phone number to call, which gives them a really cool audio, and funny messages from Kratos and director David Jaffe. So what do you think about these facts about Kratos in God of War? Did you know all of these facts, or did you learn something new in this video? Tell me in the comments down below, and let's discuss it. And I'll see you in the next video.